Good evening, and thank you for joining us with On the Q-Tip, where we're keeping you in the know. I'm your host, Miss Quinn. This evening, we have joining us Dr. Frank E. Robinson, who's a medical doctor. And he does so much, so I'm just going to say he's a medical doctor of all trades, okay? He does it all. Dr. Robinson, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on the show. I think you've done an excellent job, and I look forward to this evening. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun and hopefully discover some new things, and let's see how it rolls.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. So, Dr. Robinson, before we get started, you're here because you have actually written a book. You've written a book, My Dominican Experience, A Medical School Journey, a memoir. So, before we get into the book, Dr. Robinson, I want you to tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, Ms. Q, I have a very interesting background. Finished medical school and initially went into private practice in a very small town on the eastern side of North Carolina, Rocky Mount. That was a very, very rewarding experience. In fact, had the opportunity to treat a wide range of ages and encountered a lot of different medical problems. From there, I segued into practice in Georgia, and again on the private practice side, and subsequently did some other things involving health administration in medical directorships, both in hospice as well as life insurance medicine, and subsequently went into emergency room medicine, hospitalist, as well as urgent care. At the present time, my activities predominantly consist of performing dermatologic surgery, as well as, but not as much now, urgent care. As we age and mature, our ability to sustain such long hours, even though it's fun, begins to take its toll. So I pretty much am at a semi-retirement phase and spend a lot of time enjoying the grandkids.
All right. Sounds fantastic. Sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So, we're going to get into this book a little bit here, okay? My Dominican Experience. But first, I want to ask you, Dr. Robinson, who or what was the inspiration behind the creation of this book?
A very good friend of mine, Dr. John Ray, who I met in Greensboro, North Carolina, while I was a medical director at Jefferson Pilot Life Insurance. He, at that time, was a motivational speaker. I met him at one of the Black Expos, I believe, in 2000. We, one day, over coffee, were just discussing things in the community, what we could do to further enhance healthcare there. And he asked me questions about my background,
Okay.
where I went to medical school and training. And as we further developed this discussion as to where I went to school, he discovered that I had started medical school in the Dominican Republic. At that point, Dr. Ray dropped his pen and said, "Hold it a minute. This story is unbelievable. You're telling me that you went to a foreign country, Spanish language, and began medical school?" I said, "Yes." He said, "And then you transferred back to a domestic U.S. school?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, how did you do this? How did you make it? I mean, this was an unbelievable story." And he said, "You've got to put this in print." I myself was not that amused or find it that difficult. He said that was difficult. Not everyone can just get up and go overseas,
That's true.
go to medical school, be successful, and come back and perform in the way that you have for our community.
Wow. So this Dr. Ray,
John
John Ray,
yes.
he was sort of the one that pushed you or told you that this needed to be published. People needed to hear your story.
Absolutely. He was the catalyst. He said, uh, you are a diamond in the rough in that you came from a very poor background, Newark, New Jersey, where the statistics were certainly not in your favor. Most of the individuals that I was around, that I grew up with, went off into lives of crime, alcoholism, drug addiction, et cetera, were victims of the penal system, et cetera, et cetera. Though there have been many successful people that have come out of Newark, um, he said it's very unusual for you to navigate such a stream professionally and come through unscathed. So he felt it was very, very vital that I put pen to paper. And though I did not originally start the project when we were talking and communicating, I kept very, very careful notes. And over a period of time, perhaps a decade, I began to put it together and began to compose chapter by chapter by chapter. And eventually it culminated in what you see here, my Dominican experience.
Okay. Well, Dr. Robinson, we have so many people watching, our viewers at home, the people in our studio audience here. Can you tell me what type of person do you think, in your opinion, would enjoy reading this book?
That's a very good question. I interact with a lot of young people, particularly young African Americans, and myself having been a product of situations that were less than optimal and having overcome tremendous odds and community conditions, et cetera, I thought it vital that individuals have access to someone and read about someone, experience someone who has actually lived that life. Many people have gone to med school, law school, et cetera, been successful, but they did it perhaps under conditions that were far more optimal.
Right.
Their families had money. The previous family members may have had contacts with other individuals, people who had gone to college or professional school. I had none of that. In addition, there was no money. So a lot of the mentorship had to come from external sources, and it had to be nurtured and developed over a long period of time. And I must say that I am quite aware that there are young people out there who need to see, who need to hear that someone was able to achieve this in spite of coming from poverty, in spite of not having all of the opportunities and the wherewithal in the mentorship that others had, that you can do it, that it is not something that is unachievable. And so if I could reach just a handful of
Right.
individuals, then I feel as though that book has served its purpose.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. My next question for you, when I was reading the book, I found some interesting things in here. But I want to ask you, what do you think would be most surprising to people about you after they've read the book?
Well, I think, in fact, I know as I interact with people, as I interact with patients over time, whom I've treated, patients I've treated, they cannot believe that this individual who is a regular doctor, normal doctor like anyone else,
Right.
treats them successfully, has gone on to do things, actually went to school outside of the U.S. system. Most persons' perception of foreign medical schools, be they in the Caribbean or in Mexico or even overseas in Italy, France, whatever, that they are somehow inferior. What I've done, I believe, is take that thought and change the paradigm shift to show that not only are individuals like myself able to complete studies, but they can do it in a superior fashion, come back to the U.S., enter the mainstream of medical practice in all specialties do very well. And many are directors of departments of surgery, medicine, OBGYN, and no one knows the difference whatsoever. In fact, they exceed what you would consider to be your quote unquote normal U.S. medical physician.
Wow, that's very interesting. Um, I want to ask you, with your Dominican experience, my question is, what, how did you learn about the school in the Dominican Republic? I mean, how did you hear about it? What was the first time? Did somebody mention it to you? Did you read about it somewhere? Did you hear about it on television? How did you even know that this was an option?
Well, at the time, after I'd gotten several rejections from U.S. medical schools, I went to physician's assistant school in Brooklyn, New York. And at that time, I still never lost my desire to become a physician. I met some roadblocks, but I did not let the initial rejection deter me from the ultimate. I was going to find a way to go to medical school.
Right.
Failure was not an option.
All right.
Thus,
Ambition.
I sought out every possible option, doorway, leadway, and as I worked in Brooklyn and Queens, I met individuals who had gone to school, who had gone to medical school overseas. And they said, oh yes, there are many schools overseas. I was amazed. I had never heard of this.
Okay.
So, being the type of person inquisitive as I was, I began to investigate, read. I went to the library, sought out. This was before the age of internet. So everything was done by hand. I went and found out. I read and sought out and discovered quickly that there were options, and I was going to achieve it. I was going to go to medical school come hell to high water.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
I heard that. I heard that. So, I'm sure being in the Dominican Republic, it's very different from here in the States. What were some challenges or some of your biggest challenges that you faced while you were over there?
There were probably several, and they can be broken down into various levels. Obviously, at that point, I was married, wife, and at the point I left for the Dominican Republic, had a couple of children at that point who were very young. So that obstacle, that situation had to be dealt with. You're dealing on one hand with an issue of wanting to achieve a career goal, but at the same time you have obligations and responsibilities. Number two, financial.
Right.
There was not a lot of money. In fact, there was no money. I was working as a PA and sometimes working 6 and 7 days a week. Number three, how was I going to overcome the issue of the language and the culture? If you're in school overseas, there's obviously going to be in a foreign land, perhaps Spanish or French or some other language. And so having to navigate and deal with all this, I took one at a time.
Okay.
Now, dealing with wife and children, it was sort of a little bit of a go around because I didn't want to tell the wife all the ideas I had up front that I was planning to do this, although she knew that he's going to probably reapply to the American school. So I put that on the back burner for a second. Finances, I said, I can do this. Let me find out how much this is going to cost. So I researched and found out, in general, how much these schools cost. Number three, I found out that not only were some of the schools taught in English, but that this was a real possibility in getting into one of those schools as opposed to a Spanish-speaking school, although I was not opposed to learning Spanish. But I didn't have to thoroughly learn the Spanish language to matriculate.
Okay.
So that was pretty much the grid I used to approach the whole dilemma of getting into a medical school. But what I kept at the forefront was that vision and that passion, and that's what kept me going. That's what kept me going, particularly while I was actually in the Dominican Republic.
Okay. Okay. So you talked about the language barriers. What about transportation? What about some of your fears from being somewhere far away from home, from your family, from your friends? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it is said that youth uh, is a good thing because it diminishes some of the fear of what might possibly be. Um, a little bit of that is, I guess, testosterone driven.
Okay.
And I fervently believed that I could do it.
Okay.
There was really, I mean, I know this is a little bit hard to believe, but there was really not a lot of fear in that sense. Okay. I said, if someone else can do this, if someone else can travel overseas, if someone else can complete schooling, medicine, and come back, then so can I. So in that sense, there was really not a lot of fear in the traditional sense. I was at that age, and probably 26, 27, fearless. I was going to get on that plane, and I was going to go over there, and I was going to live and do what I needed to do.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that information, Dr. Robinson. And what we're going to do now, people, is take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Dr. Robinson. How's it going?
On the Q-Tip with Miss Quinn, where she'll be keeping you in the know. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Watch us on waen-tv.com or Facebook Live /Studio 21 Media. To be a guest on the show, a member of the live studio audience, promote your product or services, contact Quintasha at 404-454-9347. On the Q-Tip with Miss Quinn, where she'll be keeping you in the know. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Watch us on waen-tv.com or Facebook Live /Studio 21 Media. To be a guest on the show, a member of the live studio audience, promote your product or services, contact Quintasha at 404-454-9347.
Welcome back. We're still here with Dr. Robinson, and he's telling us a little bit about his experience in the Dominican Republic and also talking to us about his book that he has published here, My Dominican Experience, which is a great, great read. I'm asking him a few questions about the book and about his experience in the Dominican Republic. Dr. Robinson, when I was reading your book, I noticed one of the jobs that you had, and it kind of shocked me, you sold clothes on the streets of Newark, New Jersey. And I was just curious, did you think or have any idea that some of the things that you were experiencing, like selling clothes on the streets of New Jersey, would help you navigate through your journey to becoming a doctor?
Well, that was an interesting period of my life. I've always enjoyed sales.
Okay.
My first job was at a fish market at age 14 in Newark. And believe it or not, I was a very shy person.
Wow, interesting.
I had a mild speech impediment and had to overcome that. And one of the best ways to overcome that is through sales. And I was thrown into the whole arena of having to interact with adults, with people
Okay.
across the counter. And my employer, named John King, uh, he was a very, very shrewd person. He sensed my insecurity, and he sort of pushed me to speak more, to communicate.
Okay.
And with that, I gained more confidence, more experience. From that, much later on, probably around age 19 or so, uh, a gentleman took me to Connecticut, and his name was Brother James, and we sold coats up in Norwalk, Connecticut, and that was fascinating. And from that point on, I realized, my gosh, I like this. This is all right.
Okay.
And I hooked up with a couple other folks, and we would sell clothes in Harlem. We would start from 110th Street and all the way up to 145th in St. Nicholas. And that was great. My other friend, Timothy, and I, we were very, very close. We would go out and sell 8-track tapes. And we had great fun. The only problem is you only sell 8-track tapes at night in clubs. So
Okay.
anybody who knows me know I do not like being up at night. I hate being up at night. But in order to make money, in order to sell the 8-track tapes, and this probably precedes a lot of individuals' time, 8-track tapes, but we were very successful at that, and we sold, and I loved it, and I sold a lot of women's clothes, ladies' clothes, and halter tops, and polyester pants, and I became good at it. I mean, I could sell you some pants and a halter top, okay, across a bar stool or a greasy spoon restaurant. You just had to be careful of the white pants. You kept those in plastic because if they got dirty, you couldn't sell them anymore.
Right.
So you learned various sales techniques, how to interact with people. You built confidence. And I think that whole mindset of confidence in your ability to communicate was critical to going overseas because no longer were you afraid. There was no fear. And so faith, having no fear, all of that combination, I think, it essentially made it possible for me to traverse these landmines and go around and complete the circle.
Okay. Okay. Now, you were talking earlier about when you were doing your research about the Dominican Republic. How did you find the school? What school did you go to over there? How did you find that school? How did you know that that was the right school for you?
Sure. I actually, through my research, discovered or came across maybe 4 or 5 schools that met the criteria I was looking for. That is, they taught in English, that they had a sizable number of American students. So what I did was I jumped on a plane and went to the Dominican Republic.
Wow. Just
And
like that.
Yes, just like that, and visited 4 schools. One was Mundial, which I wound up at. The second one was Cephas, and the third one was CTEC. I came back home and then researched those schools further to determine which one I should probably attend. I saw that Cephas and CTEC had a fair amount, a sizable amount of American students. That somehow didn't quite hit me right for some internal reason. Mundial was much smaller. The faculty to student ratio was better,
Okay.
and it had a more homespun atmosphere, and I felt that they were more geared to teaching as opposed to just the money.
Okay.
So I came back home, I put in my application to Mundial, et cetera, and that's how I wound up at Mundial.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Process of elimination,
Absolutely.
basically. Okay. So, in your book, you describe the school Mundial as less Americanized. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, basically, when I went to Cephas and CTEC, I saw a lot of students, a lot of American students, and I came away with the impression that, oh, here we go again, with the American sort of atmosphere. not as serious as I wanted. Uh, Whereas at Mundial, there was more of a mixture, a hybridization of students from many countries, Africa, Asia, Philippines. I mean, they were from all over. And they seemed more serious about the task at hand. So that's what I mean by less Americanized. It was something different than what I had been exposed to here in the States.
Okay. So there was more of a buffet of people from different
Absolutely.
cultures. Okay. Very good. Very good. Um, since your time there, and I think in your book you mentioned you did 2 years over in the Dominican Republic, and then did you just get tired of it, or did you just say, I want to come back? What was your reason for not continuing on in the Dominican Republic?
Should I say it in Spanish or English? No,
English, please.
no tengo dinero. In other words,
No
no
money.
money. Ran out
Okay.
of money.
Okay.
Plus the fact, and this is addressed in the book, I was missing home, missing my wife, missing my children. Remember, they were very, very young, two and
Right.
4 years old. Uh, my oldest daughter, Camilla, I mean, it was heartbreaking. I mean, we're at the airport, she's crying, this, that, and the other. I said, I've got to find a way to get back. So mentally, psychologically, I knew that to continue at Mundial, I would need to find third and fourth year clerkships. Back then, as opposed to now, the medical students had to find those clerkships on their own and required one to pay for those clerkships out of pocket. Well, at this juncture, I had no money. I did not have the connections. So I had to look for a third option. And that third option was trying to transfer back to an American school into the third year. And that took more research, more processing to discover that needle in a haystack, because there weren't a lot of schools that were accepting transfer students.
Okay. Okay. And I'm going to just go out on a limb and say the school was Camden.
You're absolutely correct.
And I noticed in your book, which I thought was amazing, that you were the only African American selected or chosen out of 28 people accepted into Camden. That must have been something.
Well, the statistics are even more profound than that. There were actually 500 applicants.
Okay.
So when you consider the odds ratio of one person out of 500, and it got down to the state of New Jersey, the University of Medicine and Dentistry, actually accepting 28 students per year. 18 were going to be accepted in Camden, and 10 were going to be accepted at the New Brunswick campus. So what happened was they had selection criteria. They gave some preference to New Jersey residents, but number 2 and 3, you had to have excellent grades in the first 2 years of medical school. Number 2, you had to score somewhere in the 90th, 95th percentile in the MSKP exam, which covered all of the basic sciences from the first 2 years of medicine. Those are some tough courses. And to excel at those, particularly translated into test scores, is very difficult.
Okay. Okay. Wow, but I just felt like I'm wondering if at that age versus now, did you really understand the significance of being the only African American person out of that 28, out of that group?
No, because at that point, I was not acutely aware that I was the only African American. I really didn't focus on that. And to be honest with you, until much later, I didn't realize it.
Okay.
There was another young lady. She was from India, Jodi Patel, and she and I were the two minorities who, in fact, transferred over. But I was the only African American. So yes, that in and of itself was quite a feat. And in fact, when I got back, people would look at me kind of bizarre, like, how did you get back here? You weren't supposed to. Statistically, the probability of this was was absolutely tiny, if at all. So I began to realize that more into the third year and closer to the fourth years, as individuals, the administration made me more aware of the rarity of number one, an African American going overseas
Okay.
to medical school,
Right.
and number two, being successful in transferring back.
Okay. Wow. That, I mean, the experience in itself was just, it just sounds amazing, amazing. But I want to say the book is a very, very good read. I've read it. I've gone through it twice. There's so many interesting facts in here. Just some things, a lot of things about overcoming obstacles, hard work, being determined. What would you like for readers to gain from reading your book?
Again, the biggest thing, and I think it was my aim in writing the book, to not only give information, but to tell a story of triumph, of how you navigate obstacles in life, and that given one's inner being, soul, tenacity, passion, vision, that in spite of the odds, that you can still overcome. You can still be successful.
That's true.
Even if you're poor, even if you come from a disadvantaged background, even if perhaps at first you weren't the best student. I was not always the best student, but I became a very good student. And I think that tells a tale also. I love learning now. I love all of that. But beginning, I came up in a system that did not necessarily appreciate or value education. So overcoming that took a tremendous amount of drive, energy, and I think I want as I speak to students, I've spoken to students over the years, I point that out to them. You don't always have to start out being the sharpest knife in the drawer, but you can become one of the sharpest and still cut steel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can do it. Never, ever give up.
Absolutely. I love that. Dr. Robinson, in the interest of time, what I'd like for you to do is tell our viewers at home where they can get your book if they're interested in purchasing it, and what the cost is.
The book is available at Amazon.com, as well as BarnesandNoble.com and BooksAMillion.com. The price for the black and white edition is $9.99, and for the color version, which has some color photos, and it is $15.99. And I think that the viewers will really enjoy the essence of the story and the theme of what I'm trying to say. And it's just an interesting life story, a segment of my life story of what is achievable if you have a dream, if you have a passion, if you have the energy, if you have the tenacity and the will to proceed. And I'll put in a plug. I'm working on my autobiography now, which is almost complete, and the title of that is This Is As Good As It Gets, A Life of Passion. And that's due out in April. It's about 300 pages. Took a longer time to write, much more in depth. It covers the whole period from birth to the birth of my grandkids, who I'm sure are watching this out in Alabama. And hopefully this will serve as a legacy for them. And I just put in a plug to Sydney and Kendall, and I know they're watching it, and they probably don't know that this is Granddad who's up here on the stage.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Robinson, for joining us today. And I'd love for you to come back again when your next book is ready to, when it's published. We'd love to have you back with that one. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I thank you. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. We'll be right back in a few moments.
On the Q-Tip with Miss Quinn, where she'll be keeping you in the know. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Watch us on waen-tv.com or Facebook Live /Studio 21 Media. To be a guest on the show, a member of the live studio audience, promote your product or services, contact Quintasha at 404-454-9347. On the Q-Tip with Miss Quinn, where she'll be keeping you in the know. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Watch us on waen-tv.com or Facebook Live /Studio 21 Media. To be a guest on the show, a member of the live studio audience, promote your product or services, contact Quintasha at 404-454-9347.
Thank you so much for tuning back in. Now joining me, I have Reverend Dr. John A. Allen. He is the associate pastor with First Baptist Church of Red Oak, right here in Red Oak, Georgia, on Washington Road. Dr. Allen, thank you so very much for joining us this evening.
Ms. Q, thank you so much for having me on this show, and it's always a privilege to be in your company.
Thank you so very much, sir. So, Reverend Allen, we're going to get right into it. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, I was born in Savannah, a sibling of 9 in the family. I served in the U.S. Air Force military. I have always loved working in the nutritional department. Okay. Always had a job in food service, and I'm currently in food service with the Cobb County school systems. And not only do I love school food, if you will, in the school systems, I also just enjoy, seeing expressions on people's faces, making them happy with the nutritional food that we do serve.
Okay.
But I'm also an associate minister, you just mentioned, with Red Oak Baptist Church. I also attended Luther Rice Seminary, where I earned my Master of Divinity. I earned my PhD with Louisiana Baptist Church University. And I'm married to a wonderful wife, Laurie Allen. I'm a father of 4.
All right. Wow. And I have met your wonderful wife, and she is gorgeous. Hi, Miss Allen. So you said that you are the associate pastor or minister with First Baptist Church of Red Oak. Tell us, how did you first become affiliated with that church?
Well, it's an interesting story. Again, we talked about working food service I was employed with Piccadilly Cafeterias
Okay.
for 21 years, and I met Pastor Freeman at the business. He would come in and have lunch, and he would have dinner, and we stracked up some conversations, not knowing that he was a pastor. Then I met his wife, and then I soon learned that he was the pastor of Red Oak Baptist Church.
Okay.
And shortly thereafter, a year or two, I was called into the ministry. I accepted the call, I should say. And when I did my trial sermon, I shared that with Dr. Freeman, and he was more ecstatic than I was. And right at the table, he says, "Well, Doctor, do you have this Sunday open on your calendar?" And trying to be humorous, I said to him, "Let me see." So we both smiled and laughed about that experience. And then that's how I got to know Dr. Freeman. I accepted his invitation, went over to the church, brought a message, and the rest is history.
All right. All right. So you said you are the associate pastor. What exactly does that entail? What exactly does that role include?
Okay, well, the associate pastor is, I like to consider the right hand, if you will, to the pastor at his service, at his call, for whatever he may need me to do to assist him in the ministry.
Okay. Okay. Now my next question, and I don't want to step on any toes, but I just want to ask Reverend Allen, why do you think nowadays a lot of people have gotten away from attending church regularly?
Well, that's 1,001 answers to that. Again, the church, people are falling away from the ministry. The Word of God in Timothy tell us that there will be a great falling away. And really, the number one answer, I would say, is sin. We look at our morals and our values today.
Okay.
If you look at yesterday, it was a much more tight value system where people honored and respected one another. And I think through the time changes in our culture and technology and so many things that we have at our fingertips and so many things we put on our plate, we pick and choose what we're going to do. Back in the day, it used to be pretty much a worship day, a service day for Sundays for most families.
Right.
But now you have everything open 24 hours a day, so therefore you got to make a choice. And sadly to say, they're choosing the world versus choosing to have a relationship with the Holy God.
Wow, that was a great answer. That was a great answer. Now, the First Baptist Church of Red Oak, I'm sure, is not the only church in the community. But what do you think would make it different from other churches? What makes it stand out?
Well, you know, all the churches that serve our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, where God being the head, then we're all blessed to even be a part of a ministry serving God. But I think what makes Red Oak a little unique is that it's a small church family. It's a loving family. If one hurts, we all hurt. In other words, we reach out to one another. And an old saying is you can judge the fruit, but the tree from the fruit, if you will. So therefore, if we look at the body itself and come and visit with us, you will see that there is a loving spirit in the house. So I think that's the main thrust, is that we love one another. We're small enough to care for one another, and we are big enough to help one another.
All right. I like that. I like that. What are some of the different ministries under the First Baptist Church of Red Oak umbrella that somebody that's looking for a church home could be a part of if they were to come and possibly join?
Well, as we look at the umbrella of the ministries of the church, ministries is nothing but a service to the family of the church, the household, as well as a service to the community. And the larger your ministry is, the more ministries you may have in the building to accommodate the different situations. But some of our ministries that we do have on board, we have the deacon board, of course, the mother boards, we have the usher boards, we have the youth ministry, we have the adult ministry, we have Feed the Hungry and Clothe the Hungry ministry, we have the bereavement ministry. Also, we have evangelism outreach ministry. And there's probably one or two more that I've missed, but basically, we try to keep the ministries where they are conducive to serving the people,
Okay.
not ministries just to be busy.
All right. I like how you put that. Um, of the ministries that you mentioned, are you the leader of any of those ministries?
Well, currently I'm serving as evangelism outreach leader. I also serve as a leader for the Brotherhood of Red Oak Baptist Church. And also, as one of the leaders, I teach Sunday school. And I also am involved with three other people dealing with youth ministry. And we call that Let's Talk. And that is a very dynamic program that we have at the church where we really want to reach out to our teens and our little ones and prepare them for life, tell them what is truth and what is not the truth, expose them to the Word of God that they can think about things before they actually get so deep into the worldly things that they will at least know what truth is. And we also encourage them to bring anything on the table they want to talk about, but give us a week in advance to talk about certain things so we can be scripturally sound in whatever we teach.
That's right. I like that. Trying to make sure that our youth are religiously and biblically prepared for life. I like that. Why do you think it's important to be an active member of any ministry or group that you decide to join within your church?
And that's a great question because there are those who come within the church and join the church and they select different ministries to serve. The importance of the ministry is to serve. So therefore, we have to have hands on deck. We have to have people who are faithful, who are committed, and who are willing, if you will, to be of service to the church family as well as the community. So therefore, if you have many hands, many individuals involved, praying, giving of their times, their talents, giving of their experience and these type things, then the ministry cannot help but be successful, especially if we put God first. And as we put God first and we seek these things that we are trying to do, we can be successful. But if you join the church and you're not attentive in the ministries, you come when you decide to come and you're not consistent in being committed to God, then therefore the ministry does suffer in its work. It doesn't stop the work, but it does hinder the work of God.
Wow, hindrance. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a few moments more with Reverend Dr. John A. Allen.
On the Q-Tip with Miss Quinn, where she'll be keeping you in the know. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Watch us on waen-tv.com or Facebook Live /Studio 21 Media. To be a guest on the show, a member of the live studio audience, promote your product or services, contact Quintasha at 404-454-9347. On the Q-Tip with Miss Quinn, where she'll be keeping you in the know. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Watch us on waen-tv.com or Facebook Live /Studio 21 Media. To be a guest on the show, a member of the live studio audience, promote your product or services, contact Quintasha at 404-454-9347.
Welcome back, and we're still here with Reverend Dr. John Allen, and Dr. Allen, my question for you, because you've talked a little bit about First Baptist Church of Red Oak, you've talked about some of the ministries that they have at the church. Do you guys have any events coming up soon?
Yes, we do, Ms. Q. We have the Men's Day program, which is coming up, be the 28th of January, the last Sunday in January. And this is an occasion that I did a little research on that, and it's been going on for 84 years.
Wow.
As of January 28th, 2018. And this is a program, if you will, that is designed to bring the unchurched male and young man in, which might be the son, and therefore that we can bring about a program and show them how God intended for men to stand up and represent his household. And therefore, if a man is of God, he will teach his son of God. And therefore, the teachings continue. And therefore, if we are successful, in which we shall be, because again, we totally depend upon God to let this program be a success. But it's an opportunity for men to come together in brotherly love and do the entire program from the usher to the pulpit.
All right, all right. Thank you so very much for that. So that's the Men's Day program at First Baptist Church of Red Oak, January 28th, 2018. So for those viewers that are watching, if they wanted to come out and support that program or that event, or just come and visit your church, where are you guys located?
We're located at 4710 Washington Road. And sometimes it's Red Oak, Georgia. It is also have it listed on Google as Atlanta, Georgia, but it's 4710 Washington Road. Also, we have a phone number that you can call us and leave a message, and someone will answer the phone. It's 404-767-9449. Again, 404-767-9449.
My question to you before we end, Reverend Allen, what type of encouraging words would you give to somebody at home watching right now who may be struggling with their faith?
And again, Ms. Key, we thank you for that question. That it really is an important question, because the church is established that the church can be a help to the community, and the community can be a help to the church. For those who are struggling in their faith, the best way to build faith is to be strong and trust the Word of God. There are so many things that in our culture and current time that people want microwave solutions. There aren't any microwave solutions and never have been. But the more that we continue to have faith and trust God and know that He has the final answer in all things in life, and the more that we build that personal relationship, and I don't mean just calling upon God when a crisis exists. I mean calling upon God and thanking Him in the good times and thank Him in the bad times. Don't let people or circumstances discourage your personal growth and faith in God. Because when you're walking with God, it is a personal thing for you. We can come together as a church family and a body and worship God in truth and in spirit. But when it comes to that individual, it's all about you and what kind of lumber you throwing on the fire. You can't come into a warm room if you're not putting any lumber on the fire. But when you call on the name of Jesus, and you believe with all your heart that He hears exactly what you're saying and you're calling His name, there's no other power on this earth greater than knowing that God is able in spite of the circumstances. Sometimes we let our circumstances override our emotions. But I pray that you have enough strength, no matter what storm you are going through, no matter what you are facing, to stand strong and call on the name of Jesus and know that He is able. And with Him, you cannot fail. And without Jesus in your life, nothing is possible, because God is life. He gives life. God takes life. God knows about the circumstances that you're in, and only He can fix it.
All right, Reverend Allen, thank you so much for that inspirational and encouraging word right there. I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, and you're welcome back anytime. Thank you so much to Dr. Robinson for joining us this evening. And I'd like to give a shout out at this time to Complete Financial and Tax Services, LLC, located at 3004 Washington Road, Suite A. Miss Valerie Heinzman. Give her a call at 404-477-0532. Again, her number is 404-477-0532. She guarantees to get you the maximum back on your refund. That's Complete Financial and Tax Services, LLC. And that's all we have for you this evening. Please join us next week where we have 2 special guests. Thank you. And this is Miss Quinn with On the Q-Tip, keeping you in the know.